Okay. We call this Department of Public Works meeting to order. This meeting was posted as required by state law. Everybody is here. So, everybody who needs to be here is here. Yes, very good. So we'll stand and say a silent prayer and a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first item on the agenda is a review of the minutes. Does anybody have any corrections or changes to make? Seeing none, we'll accept them as they are. And we'll move on to the discussion or possible action items. Transit quarterly report.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good.
All right, so we have the quarterly report. It's currently in the draft status.
I'm sorry, can you identify yourself, since this is only
sure.
the second meeting, I'm not really sure.
Oh, that's
who
right.
everybody
Yeah,
is.
sorry about that. My name is Charles Kofta. I'm the transit manager for Washington County Transit.
Great, okay. Thanks, Charles.
Apologize, Ken.
No,
I missed it myself.
That's a run show. Thank you, Charles.
I keep forgetting we got a couple new guys in here.
Thank you.
Of course. Okay, so on the agenda is the quarterly report for transit. This was created last year, so it's still currently a draft. It really depended on the fare increase, but let's see. Costs have increased for the shared ride taxi, so this kind of is around the changes that would be required to avoid the increasing costs in the shared ride taxi service. Do you have any questions on that?
I can add a little background for that, if I may, especially with the new committee members. You may recall that the Commuter Express was terminated, and last year we went through a fee adjustment for shared ride taxi. It had been 12 years since we done that last fare adjustment. The next fiscal cliff coming, I know you've heard that word before, is that our ARPA funds run out for transit. We got a pretty good hefty amount of ARPA funds in from the federal government for our transit program, multi-million dollars for our little transit program, believe it or not. And those funds will be running out by 2027. So as we look forward to our next budget cycle, there's a couple ways we're looking at to fill that gap, and that's what we'll be looking at over the next year and a half during your time here, is to say, how do we fill that next gap that's potentially coming down the road as part of the next budget cycle. So that's really what this kind of centers on about is, one is certainly we could increase fares again, not very popular. We could reduce hours, again, not very popular. We're looking at some other funding options, and Charlie is very creative in looking at those. We'll bring some of those forward to you as well to see what's coming forward. Obviously, next federal budget packet might have something else in it for transit. You just never know. But we just want to make sure we're looking at some options now and preparing you ahead of time, not getting to budget and going, oh, by the way, we need $1 million or whatever the number is going forward. So we're trying to be as open and transparent and as open as quickly as we can, on this project. The last committee was aware of this. We mentioned it last time that even the fare increase was only going to get us so far. And if you remember, we primarily did the fare increases on the adult fares and kept the elderly disabled rate fairly steady. Again, a minor raise in those fares. So this is looking at, okay, now what's the next potential going to be going forward? So it's a very popular program, especially amongst the elderly and disabled, to get from point A to point B. So and it's been a past experience that the committee and board have really appreciated the program, want to keep it going, and we do too. And we got to start talking about that now, what that looks like going forward. So having one big conversation, we're going to have multiple smaller conversations over the course of the next year and a half.
When you say other funding options, obviously referring to possible federal grants or state grants or stuff for
federal grants, state grants, advertising, things like that
Okay.
we haven't done in the past. So that kind of stuff that we got to start talking about.
Thank you.
One question, how much does external costs, fuel and service and all that stuff, play into the numbers?
it's a big component of the numbers. You can imagine that you have anywhere up to 17 vehicles on the road at any time, then they're moving constantly or idling with the air conditioning on or the heat on to make sure. So fuel and then personnel costs. But you throw in insurance costs as well. You throw it all in there, inflation hits us just as hard as everybody else.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we can move on to the ridership, which, can't talk today. Ridership report is also attached to your packet.
Earlier thing, is that the hour earlier that affecting you, or?
Yeah, that's it. It's been a busy day. I think my brain checked out before. So I see they're not coming back up, but they're inching, but still not where they should be.
The question on these numbers, is this also the lower numbers that takes into account we getting rid of Commuter Express? Are those numbers, is this just shared ride?
This is just shared ride.
Those numbers are not in here at all.
Correct.
Okay.
No, that was always a separate report before.
Okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Why isn't the numbers coming back up? What's the reason for that?
The contracted hours in the past was higher. It was around 63,000 service hours, which are billed from the invoice from the contracted service, specialized transport services. But this year it's 58,000 hours. So it is a lower. So you'll see the billed hours column. It could be included in a past report. In a previous year, the billed hours for each of those months. So you could see kind of the trip per hour, which is kind of shown in 2022 and 2023 at the bottom there.
Okay, any other questions? We'll have to just keep tracking and see what happens. Hopefully they come back.
I seen it yesterday. I was looking at that, and I was wondering what happened. How come they aren't coming down?
Well, I think we talked about that before too. Some of that might be the adjustment in our rates. Maybe kept some people away. I don't know. It's probably a multitude of things, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next item is a lead lateral update.
If I may, Mr. Chair,
Absolutely.
because this is new to this committee, this was actually taken to executive committee prior to this, is now going back to Public Works Committee. Lead laterals was something that we looked at, if you recall, those that were on the board. We did a presentation with the Chief Health and Human Services Officer, Julie Driscoll, and I back in September 2023, talking about lead laterals, and the county executive, utilizing $3 million of ARPA funds, decided to look at lead laterals primarily in the city of West Bend, and the program's expanded beyond that. You'll see in your packet the lead lateral grant program. It's a 3-page document, so if you had a chance to read that, I won't go through it in great nauseum. But what we're looking at doing is the county executive found out that when the city did some work on 7th and 8th Avenue here in the city of West Bend, that a lot of the homeowners did not replace their private side lead laterals. Think of there's public in the street, right, from the pavement to the back behind the curb. Then there's private that's behind the curb going to the house, a water service line going through there. And years ago, they used lead, believe it or not, to use that, the water service to get to the homes. And realized that a lot of those homeowners didn't take advantage of that construction project and replace their private side lead laterals. So looking at that, as well as the funding of roadways in the city of West Bend, came up with this grant program to help pay for not just the private side lead laterals, but with using ARPA funds, we have to replace the entire lead lateral for those that have lead lateral in the street and on the private side. And so what we looked at doing was $15,000 for the public side. So from the water main to basically behind the sidewalk will be a payment to the city. This in case West Bend, Kewaskum, Slinger will get $15,000 for that. And then if it's above the actual cost, then they can put that money towards the road to help fix the roadways. And then the private side would be $5,000. And the $5,000 was an estimate we met with the city of Hartford to see what they did when they did some private side. And you'll see later on in the report that that number is actually a fairly good number. But the $5,000 is actual cost. You can imagine that somebody's house might have a finished basement, somebody's might not. You might have a tree to replace in someone's yard. Maybe they have sidewalk, maybe they have planting. So every house is a little bit different, so it's very hard to say ergonomically when you're doing hundreds of these in the county what each one is particularly going to cost. Plus then there's administrative costs on there, construction engineering, inspection, phone calls, coordination, stuff like that as well that has to be completed. So what we did was we first offered this to the city of West Bend, hoping that they would be able to constitute enough to use all $3 million. They shifted some projects around. They used about $2.235 million. We added some in there for those contingencies I just talked about. So that left about $500,000 remaining in the grant program. And so we decided that Village Kewaskum contacted us shortly after the announcement of the program because they had some lead laterals on U.S. Highway 45, which is currently under construction in the village. And so they also had not only those 6 laterals, but they had other laterals in the village too, but again, only a handful. And so it made complete sense. Okay, let's offer it to them, and they can maybe complete and get rid of all lead in the village of Kewaskum, which is a fantastic goal to have. And they were willing partners, and they signed on the same time, basically, that the city of West Bend was signing on to the lead lateral program. And so pleased to announce that. And now that's kind of the background, if you will. So now it's kind of the update on what we're doing. The Village of Kewaskum has replaced those 6 lead laterals, like I mentioned, and working on finding the remainder in the village. Every municipality is supposed to, by October this year, have that completed, their inventory of where lead laterals are, not just in Washington County, but nationally. Most of them are working their way towards that. It's a great deadline. And thankfully, West Bend was ahead of the game years ago, ahead of the game identifying when they're doing a meter swap out. So they were way ahead of the game of recognizing those. And the village is still going through, so there's still a possibility of finding another 1 or 2 or a handful here or there. So there's potential for other projects coming in the Village of Kewaskum going forward. The City of West Bend, they did actually bid out their 7th and 8th Avenue work. Again, that came in at $4,000 for construction side. Again, there's administrative costs on top of that yet, but again, we'll be pretty close to that $5,000 estimate, I believe, once we're done, as well as they did bid out the work on Summit Drive, excuse me. And so that project is well underway. If you haven't been over that part of the city, it's currently under construction right now. So that's positive as well. So they're both moving forward. We're glad to see that and making definitely an impact on the lead laterals in Washington County. But we still had some money left. Then we started talking to the Village of Slinger and see if they had some. And they had a handful of lead laterals to go as well. They believe they have around 10. Again, they're still working on their inventory. So that'll be about $50,000, and that would actually complete the Village of Slinger, hopefully, as well. And so you'd have Slinger done, Kewaskum done, potentially by the end of the year. West Bend's it's a 3-year program. So West Bend has a little more time. They have more lead laterals to work on after that. And if there's funding left, we certainly would welcome the city to relook at their schedule now that they've been working into the program a little bit to see if there's anything else they could do, but potentially going to the city of Hartford, who has lead laterals not on the private side, but on the public side left. They got a DNR grant years ago where they allowed to do the private side, not the public side. And now at that time, that was a thought, literally a few years ago. Now that thought is, nope. Because then you're disturbing the lead. You're leaving the lead in the street and leaving that. You're disturbing that at that connection point. So now the school of thought is you just replace it all at one time, is what the federal government, the ARPA funds, is telling us we have to do. So DNR is following suit on that as well. So that's the end of my report. Certainly, if the chair wishes to answer any questions you have.
Just a clarification on the private side of that. You said 5,000. Is there any obligation to the homeowner?
Oh, that is a fantastic. I appreciate you bringing that up because if you saw in the West Bend News, the city of West Bend did just pass an ordinance, a revision ordinance, that now the private side has to replace theirs. I don't want to go through the whole detail. If you want to read the article, you certainly can and read the thing, but they did pass that ordinance, so that now in the city of West Bend, that when they're doing a construction project, the private side, I believe, has to do theirs as well because of those. Part of those rules is get rid of it all.
The homeowner is responsible for the cost?
The homeowner would be responsible, but this grant is paying for the ones that they're working on currently.
Okay.
And if all goes well, there's potential that this comes back to the county board for additional funds going forward to see if there's any appetite for that going forward and seeing, how does this work going forward.
I believe we were hoping for future grants, possibly too, for that as well.
Absolutely. Now, when the federal government mandates things, and sometimes they provide funding for that, and sometimes they don't.
Right.
Unfortunately, some of the funding that's out there and available right now, Washington County doesn't qualify really well based on our economic and social economic issues that we have in our county. So, if you're in the city of Milwaukee or Madison, you do pretty well in those grants.
Right.
Washington County, not so much. Also, is like there's also an employment rate and all that kind of stuff that goes into the formula. So we just
Understood.
I know we both had contact. Michael and I both had contact with the DNR on that, and the answers are very quick.
Yeah. Understood.
No.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Ken?
Hey, Scott, so, I represent the city of Hartford. What do you know about any idea on how many private lead laterals there are in Hartford? I mean, what do you know about?
Yes, I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me.
What do you think?
Can I get you that after the meeting?
Yeah.
Or just give me a couple of seconds and I can look it up exactly for you. I don't want to throw the city of Hartford under the bus or over the bus.
Are we the second largest municipality in the county?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
I remember that number myself. It came up, but I can't recall the exact. I don't think it was that many.
And that would just be identified to this point.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's not popping up real quickly for me, but I will get that information to you before the meeting's over.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Scott.
Okay, next item on the agenda is roadway shared services update.
Yes, this is another one. If it's okay, Mr. Chair, I can give a little history on this one as well. With the referendum that went through a lot of the municipalities, not all the municipalities, but several of them, hearing that the local municipalities wanted funding for roadways. This is one way that we are able to provide some funding for some roadways, especially the maintenance on the roadways, which is often overlooked, especially by some local municipalities do this. So what the county executive did was put aside $450,000 in 2024 and $461,000 in 2025 to be utilized for maintenance on local roadways. The chief local elected officials, so think of all the mayors, town chairman, village presidents, meet on a near regular basis, and they had a meeting to decide on how to actually split that money up. The county executive, the county board chair were not at that meeting, and that group decided on how those funds should be split up amongst municipalities. The first thing they did was took municipalities that were getting shared revenue in other ways, like dispatch for Germantown, Hartford, or lead laterals with the West Bend, and said, okay, they're getting shared services and another pot of money over here. And so they said the rest of them are going to get this pot of money first. And so they decided to distribute that based on 70% on road mileage and 30% of getting equal share of the money. And so you take equal share first because of something like the village of Newburgh or town of Germantown, which have very little road mileage. If you just base it on road mileage, you only get a couple $1,000s. So they figured that getting them up to near that $10,000 threshold was in that 30%. They ran through a bunch of iterations at that meeting. A very good discussion. And so that's how they came about the dollar amounts that you see on the first page of your report, ranging from just over $10,000 up to the village of Richfield, just over $65,000. And so what that amounts to is that for that dollar amount, the Washington County Highway Department will do work for those municipalities. And the work will be anything from crack filling to chip sealing to painting lines, line striping, tree cutting, mowing, ditching, whatever services that we generally provided them in the past, they have that opportunity to do going forward. We will then not charge them for our labor and not charge them for our equipment. That comes out of the $450,000. That's what is $33,000, and then they pay for the materials. So if they have a road that needs a lot of crack filling, they're paying for the crack fill material, and then we're paying for the labor to actually put that down. And that's how the system is designed to work. And so what it does is provide them the opportunity. We met as a group and provided spreadsheets and working back and forth with municipalities to try to figure out how best to utilize those funds for those municipalities. Gave them a nice, simple spreadsheet. They were able to provide what they wanted to them. We gave them cost estimates, ballpark numbers, and they were able to kind of select, okay, yes, I want crack filling, I want painting, and I want some ditching, and they were able to fill out that spreadsheet and work with our patrol supers to make that happen. Including your packet is how we're doing on that project to date. You'll see that there's a nice spreadsheet because we love those spreadsheets. And services provided again at the bottom. We sprayed vegetation for noxious weeds and some dormant spraying, crack fill, mastic, chip sealing, grading of shoulders, ditching. Did some traffic counting for municipality, and we did some maintenance on vehicles this winter as well as renting vehicles when we had two towns had issues with a heavier storm in January for plowing snow. And so you see out there that to date, through near the end of May, we're at about 120,000 of the 452,000. So we're working our way to that, and obviously we spent more money in June. This report was due by the time we had our numbers done by the end of May. So we've been working on them in June as well. We have made contact. You'll see in that totals column, there's a few zeros, and some that are near zero. We made contact with them to see, all right, when we get going, I'll pick in the village of Richfield. Typically, we do crack filling for them in the fall of the year. And so that's one thing that we know we still got some stuff coming. So even though it might be a big zero right now, we know we've got work planned in some of those areas. But we did make contact with those municipalities just to make sure, how we're doing and how we can get more work done for you in a quicker fashion.
How is this filling in with all your county work?
We're busy, which is a really good thing.
Yeah.
It's really helps. It's one of those things that helps fill that budget gap a little bit. That with the state work that we do on the state roadways has been pretty much stagnant for 8 years. Our county levy amount has been pretty level for 8 years. And so this fills that gap of those other costs we talked about earlier about fuel and labor costs and equipment costs that have gone up. So it's great work. It's nice to get the laborers and the highway department off of the busier roadways like 41 and 45 and even the other state roads and county highways and get them on a local road for a little bit. It's a nice little break that they can go work in and not to knock us, but if you're going to work in a cul-de-sac in the town of Barton, there's a lot less traffic than on 41. And so it's a nice little mental break for the crew as well. And it's a little bit change of pace for them.
Sure. Sounds good.
I have a quick question. So the roadway shared services program, Scott, this isn't for like City of West Bend or City of Hartford. This is Town of Hartford.
It certainly could be. That group again. All elected officials met, the ones that were present anyway,
so
and they've decided that come in September of this year, they're going to relook at this again, and it could be much different going forward. Correct. They could decide that we're going to include those,
To opt in or to
opt in, opt out. They could decide that we don't like the 70-30 split. We could do something else. It'll be truly that group again will decide. Again, I'm there to provide numbers to them, not direction.
Gotcha.
Same thing with the county executive and county board chair. Like I said, they weren't at that meeting. They elected their own chairperson that ran that meeting, and that they went through a bunch of iterations. Actually, Supervisor Doug Newman was the chair of that and ran that committee.
Awesome.
Thank you, John.
Supervisor Hartwick.
Scott, I just want to ask, so in September, they'll be starting up meetings again to look for the future?
Yes.
Do you have any dates set already on that?
No, we figure we'd get a little bit closer to get everybody's calendars a little tighter first. So I think when we mentioned, we thought we met talk in August to get a meeting in September.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next. The appeal of denied access permit on County Highway NN and Z in the town of West Bend. Any motion in second, right?
I would listen to what you have and then make a motion to either appeal, to either deny it or approve it.
Okay. Sounds good. Scott, do you want to make a little presentation on this?
Absolutely. You'll see in your packet, one of your duties as Public Works is that the previous Public Works committees in the past have adopted a county's access and control policy that is on our county website, and that defines how we actually allow accesses on our county highways. It's your policy. Part of that policy is that we find that someone, like in this instance, has a situation where they don't agree with, they don't match the policy, so we have to deny them the access permit because they don't comply with the policy. Their recourse, because they could just, instead of yelling at me and coming in my office, is to come to this committee and to say, well, we'd like a change to allow this to happen, kind of like a variance, if you will, to the policy, and saying, okay, we'd like to, it's okay to do this on this one-time, one-instance basis, that when I do when I do want to appeal it, there's a $100 fee to that, so that's just not everybody will just magically appeal every decision we make to you, but those that feel strongly enough certainly can pay the $100 and write a little note as to why they think it is reasonable to actually allow this, in this case, a second access. There's many things that we deny access for. Some are site distance and engineering related. Some like this are because the policy only allows one access per parcel. So that's why this is here before the committee today, is that you are the ones that get to decide if they want to have this access or not. And we are to reinforce your policy for you. And so with this one, this is on 3719 County Highway NN. It's on the east side of Little Cedar Lake. If you're familiar with there's technically two NNNZ's intersection. This is the eastern one, most of that. There's a tavern right there called Knuckleheads. So this is just in that location around the east side of Little Cedar Lake. What you have here in this particular parcel is what they're looking at doing is we only allow one access per parcel. So there's some grandfathered in, certainly to have U-shaped driveways and stuff like that. Certainly businesses and stuff like that is a different policy for larger developments. But for small residential lots, even up to agricultural lots, it's one driveway per parcel. And the reason we do that is you can imagine if you have a 10-acre parcel, you have 14 driveways, that's just 14 people turning off onto the roadway. At some point, you got to have a turn lanes and bypass lanes and stuff like that, because we want to make sure traffic on the highway is free-flowing as much as possible. At this location is a lower speed limit at 25 miles an hour versus our normal 55 on a county highway. Due again to the curves that are located there, as well as if you're familiar with that, the houses and dwellings and garages are relatively close to the roadway, speaking as far as a county highway is concerned. And so we're looking at today is that the landowner is looking at requesting a second access onto this parcel. The current parcel, there is a nice drawing that was put in there by Ted Dumke, is a picture on the Exhibit A. The driveway serves three parcels. It's down below. It's the lake level, and where the driveway is services a lower portion of the lot. The road is up higher. The driveway actually services down to a lower area and services three lots. The individual is interested in placing a garage at that location so that they'd have access down below and access up above to the street, and then be able to drive out onto the street up above. And so that would, even though they'd only have one physical access on their property, they technically have two accesses because they got the easement that goes through the other parcel as well. And that's why this is here, because they're not getting rid of that lower access. If they were getting rid of that lower one, they'd only have one up above, we would have granted that. But they're still keeping the one down below because it services the third parcel as well to the north. And so you'll see that the landowner sent a letter as well stating that the recourses and why they believe they need a secondary access onto that parcel. I did drive it myself today. I can say with certainty that several of the points that he brings up in his letter are true. I did back my minivan up there. The tree was definitely blocking the view. I tried to get out. My tires were spinning, and a car was coming from the north. So I'm not saying you should approve it based on that, but I can say that there was a challenge with the steepness of the driveway getting out, and that I could definitely see that why they would want a driveway access right onto NNNZ. If you're familiar with that stretch, and as you can see from the drawing in there, there's multiple access points within that area, so it's not like putting 5 in a place where there wasn't 5 before. So it's just adding another driveway in one location. But this is completely up to you and your purview as whether you'd like to grant that secondary access to this property or not.
Just for clarification, I know a couple people have some questions here. But just for clarification here, this has no bearing on the permit for the building of the garage itself.
Correct. I
You
would.
can get that either way.
I
This
should-
is just for access,
I should
correct?
I should have made that clear. I apologize, and thanks for bringing it up. This is, you're deciding on access for,
Access only.
onto Highway NN and Z, whether you like the looks of the garage or not, or like the setbacks, stuff like that. That is a town issue or a shoreline zoning issue. Certainly, they could still build it and not have access onto, have the lower access and then have a pedestrian door, if you will, coming out to.
Yeah,
NN
no, I
and
just
Z.
wanted to make sure it was
So-
clear that we're just looking at access only.
Correct.
This has no bearing on his permit to build the garage. And then the second question I have, and I believe you already alluded to this, that the garage, with his easement onto the road there, there's no conflict or any safety issues that you see. You said it might even be better getting on the highway than the other drive. He has better sight lines and stuff, so we don't have to worry about any safety issues to the public or anything like
Correct.
that.
It meets the sightline requirements. Again, it's a lower speed limit, so the sightline requirements are lessened at that particular location. There's driveways north and south of there on that same side of the roadway. Personally, if you're coming out a driveway in a level condition versus coming up a ramp,
Oh, right.
generally speaking, you can do that a little safer.
Right.
I would say, especially if you had a chance to go out there and look at the driveway, it's pretty steep.
Awesome. Okay. Well, with that in consideration, Supervisor Hartwig, did you have a question?
You kind of.
I kind of touched on it already.
That's the one that I was gonna ask, but what about the three property owners own that driveway together then? Who maintains that? Or
Well, that's an easement between the three of them. I don't know who maintains them officially. Every document can be drafted up any differently and then can be modified over time.
It's like a private drive then, right?
Correct.
In
Yeah, it's a
essence, their
shared
own
common driveway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
When we have these on new properties where they, instead of having, if we have a 10-acre parcel and we want to divide it in two, we have a common driveway. We ask them to record an easement to make sure they know who's maintaining it, because you'd be surprised after a couple of years of neighbors being good neighbors, then all of a sudden they become not so good neighbors, and the fingers start pointing, and they start talking to us. And
Yeah. And we're dealing with that
Right.
in areas already.
The only other question I had, but you got ahead of me on that, so I'm fine.
Sorry about that.
With this.
Supervisor McCulick, did you have another question?
Well, so Scott, when I look at Exhibit C, that's the plat. So I'm sorry, where would the proposed driveway be? I see the proposed garage.
yes, they didn't show it. Basically, from the right side, you'll see the little 1.0 going out towards existing curb. There's
Coming, okay.
Yep. Towards the word that says existing blacktop.
From here down to here, somewhere in this general area would be a driveway.
So it'd be,
Are you on Exhibit A?
if you're on exhibit,
Yes,
Yeah.
no, I'm on C.
on
C.
see the plat of survey.
Exhibit C, okay.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to say, you're saying where it says 1.0 and John just
Yep.
pointed out an area.
If you see the words existing blacktop,
Oh,
Yes,
okay, right where the word blacktop is.
okay.
And looking at the picture, that's already an approachable curb, so it's already set up for driveways, right?
Correct, mountable.
The garage door is not on the road, it's facing the house, right? It's on the other side.
There'll be one on each side.
Oh, there would be.
Yeah, the lower level would be facing the driveway or the house.
Oh, it'd be past it.
And then, no, not necessarily, because it's two levels.
Oh, I see.
Yes, if you look
The
at,
other
yes,
one. Yeah,
so they're going to have so if you look at sheet 4 in
Yep.
that of the Mullen garage,
Yep,
that's looking from the street.
I got you, okay. Okay, so here's down here.
So the first floor is the street floor.
Okay.
Any other questions? So you say I don't have to?
You need to take a motion, you need to take a motion to either approve it or deny it. So that's why I didn't have you take a motion in the beginning, because you guys need to figure out which way you're going.
Oh, okay. I thought we had to bring them, take the motion to bring it up,
You
so.
know which way you're going.
Gotcha. All right, well, if nobody else has any questions, I'll take a motion to approve, say aye.
Well, no.
Oh, motion is
I'll second
second?
that.
First from Supervisor Hartwig, second from Supervisor McCulick.
I just have one, because I'm trying to understand this, Scott, in exhibit, because it's hard to see exhibit C, but when you look at exhibit A, it's got the paved shoulder area and then driveway shared by, is that one that's drawn in there, is that the proposed driveway?
So-
Or that's the one that's
Yep.
currently there?
Yep, well, let me walk you through that real quick. So the property we're talking about is 3719. And so you can see the house on there, which is just left of the driveway. And so that driveway is existing right now, and it goes on to the driveway of 3715 to get onto County Way NN right now. That's the existing driveway. And so that's the access that they have and they want to maintain. What they want to do is just to the left of the words NN, between the paved shoulder area and their driveway, they want to put the 3-story garage. 1 story exiting towards the lake, the next story exiting towards the roadway, and a 3rd story up above that.
So where's the other exit of the second exit going? 'Cause that's
The second exit will be right towards the word County Highway NN. So think about they're going to,
So, I mean, in the actual picture, that is a slope down, so that would have. am I-
No, he's building a multi-story building.
Yeah, okay, but
Yep.
a multi-story building right there, but then there
Yep.
would be access to that building.
yep, if you
from-
go to picture 5 of the plan set, I'll wait to get there. If you thumb down to number 5, he's got a plan set of the building. It's in the same packet.
Would it, you know what, exhibit?
Here, let me help you.
I'm sorry, I just, I'm having a hard time seeing it, so. I mean, I have-
Exhibit B.
This,
Go down.
oh, which one, you want this one?
Let's see. Oh, here, oh, I see. You got them open separately.
Yeah, so,
Exhibit B.
here's the picture, is the.
Yep, nope, you gotta go further down. That's the report.
Hold on,
Exhibit B.
and then appeal, existing conditions.
Try to be.
Open that one up.
Do you want me to bring it up, Michael? Too hard?
There, you show them this.
Now go down to
So-
5. Yeah, you just can have the plans open.
Yeah.
So there's the lower level and
Yep,
exit,
yep.
and here would be towards the road.
Okay, so the building does go in the front of those houses, and it would face NN, and then you would have, that's where the access would be right out from the garage
Correct.
on the NN. Okay, I can
But,
see
but
that.
you would also have the access down below.
Down below
And the
with
driveway going
existing
up.
driveway, that
Correct.
doesn't change.
Correct.
Okay, so the building would be the second access. I just couldn't see that
Yep.
before, but okay.
And then a 3rd floor on top of that.
And that's set back somewhat from, it's not right on NN, there would be a setback to that, correct?
And that's what the other drawing is for, but yes, it's just off of the right-of-way, about a foot off of the right-of-way on one corner and 4.2 feet off the right-of-way in the other corner. And that's a town zoning building setback requirements. Our requirements and stops right at the right-of-way line. If they want to build, a quarter inch from the right-of-way line, we're fine with that. So anything past that, we control the right-of-way. We don't control past the right-of-way. That's the town's purview.
And just a reminder, guys, that's why I brought up that we're not responsible for the building itself. We're just here to approve the approach. Right. Does anybody have any other questions then? So now I can take a vote?
Yeah, you got the motion to approve it, so.
Okay. All approved, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, then our next meeting is Thursday, July 18th at 3 o'clock. This meeting's adjourned.
call this meeting of the Land Use and Planning of Washington County to order. Here's Mr. Krebs. We are all in attendance. The meeting has been properly posted with the clerk's office. And we will start with a moment of silent prayer and a rise for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we'll start with the consent agenda. Any additions, subtractions, anything else that needs to be done with that? Then we'll hereby consider that passed. All right. First up, we have the golf course quarterly report. Do we have somebody for that, Jamie?
The golf course quarterly report is included in your packet. There are new updates on the initiatives. I also did include last year, one of the EOS initiatives was a redesign of our tracking tools for our financials and our kind of how we're monitoring it throughout the season related to management decision making. So I did include the report through May 31st for your information, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on this for Jamie?
Excuse me, Supervisor Kelly.
Yes.
Do we need a first and second for the cost share agreements?
We have not gotten to that yet.
They were the consent agenda.
Oh.
Do
I
they
don't-
typically approve the consent agenda? Okay,
Yeah,
take a
that-
motion.
Yeah, we do. We need a motion or not for that?
We do.
Okay.
Okay, motion.
All right. Well, then I will take a motion from Tina Pridemore and seconded by Pam Conrath. Thank you. Yeah, I was told that consent agendas didn't need it.
Cost share agreements, they typically do get a motion on
Those were previously passed, correct? If they're in the consent agenda minutes from last week. All right. well,
The funding is already authorized for those, yes.
Okay, this is the first time hearing of it. Because we had where items under the consent agenda were already passed through. They didn't require a first or a second on the motion. They were just,
That's actually the minutes.
what's that?
Minutes no longer required.
Okay. All right. Do we have to do those individually? Just collectively? Okay. All right. Well, then we'll go back to the golf course quarterly report.
Any questions?
Questions? Got it all? All right. All right, and we'll move on. Fair Park modernization.
Can I just make a quick comment
Sure,
on the
yep.
golf course? My family was recently there too and golfed it, and it's extremely impressed, and it's just beautiful. And my son golfs all over the country, and yeah, very impressive golf course, and all the resources and everything.
Yeah, and
Doing
if
an
you look,
excellent job.
thank you for that comment. If you looked at the reports, you'll see that it's overall about $85,000, tracking below where we would like to see it through the end of May. But if you dive into the numbers, you notice it's not in the golf accounts, meaning it's not on the greens or the cart revenues. It's almost all in food and beverage and lessons, which lessons we see a percentage of, but also our expenses sometimes are down if we don't sell the food and beverage. And so some of this boils down to we had a lot of rain Memorial Day weekend, and so it was how much beverage cart are we selling? And so we were able to have a nice follow-up conversation to these numbers with regards to, again, what we're doing, how we're tracking. But these numbers at this point don't concern us considering the amount of rain we had and number of course closures that accompanied these numbers.
Yeah, because the course closures too, my understanding is you follow a little bit maybe stricter regulations than some courses with lightning and things, or is that correct? Or
I can't comment on other courses. I was out there during the Big Brothers Big Sisters outing, and there was lightning within a 5-mile radius, and so they had to come in for a minimum of 30 minutes because it sounded within the 5 miles. And it's very precautionary in nature. If it's anywhere near the course, we require the golfers to come in.
Do you know where those regulations come from with the lightning or weather? Is that driven by insurance, or what is that driven by, the insurance?
I can follow up on that question for you. I don't know off the top of my head.
That's got to do with either baseball, kids, high school sports.
Yeah.
If there's lightning, they got suspended for 30 minutes.
We follow the PGA recommended guidance very strictly. So during COVID, I know that was coming back online. It was a lot of best practice industry recommendations. And so that doesn't necessarily mean kind of like childcare, other industries. Not every course might opt to follow, best practice recommendations.
Yeah, thank you. I've actually had a couple of people ask. So, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, and it would seem prudent with that golf course. It's a very kind of high open area, so I think if there's lightning, you probably want to get off that course in a hurry. But it is a great course, and I did review the numbers, and I looked at them, and I noticed what you were talking about. It seems like we're a little behind in some areas, but being an avid golfer myself, terrible but avid. I would attribute that as well to the weather. It's not been very cooperative, but I think that's behind us now, and I would fully expect that that's going to catch up really quick in the next month or two. So, okay, anything else? All right. We got another discussion item here, Fair Park Modernization Project Update. Jamie, you'll be speaking on that as well?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to put on the agenda an update, this material again. So this shouldn't be new information. The county board and the committee has seen this handout, the Fair Park Modernization Project scope. So last year, the county board and with the budget approved $6.2 million of debt for a modernization project out at the Fair Park. And it's broken down there for you, and you can kind of see that the high-level budget that was done at the time when we did some initial planning work was about $7.4 million. Of that $7.4 million, there was about $1 million worth of equipment with life cycles less than 5 years. And so in the determination of how much money the county was going to borrowed roughly $6.2 million. And there was some conversation with our consultants about the scope and, the decision making within that project scope that would potentially need to happen, within the range. Because the $7.4 million, I'm going to say, was everything that we could possibly have wanted related to the audiovisual and the acoustics out at the Fair Park. It's of interest is that $2.265 million lighting number. So again, everything out there, we're about to celebrate the 25th anniversary, is pretty much original infrastructure to the buildings, and so in need of that project. The reason that I wanted to make sure we're talking about this project is because we have hired consultants on this project. They have started their work in defining the scopes and the budgets and the conversation about specifically which direction we go and how this project takes shape. We expect that we will have an initial report from them at the end of June. And we are also working with them on securing a number of going after a number of other grant funding sources. And some of these and the total project budget may be, depending on how this shakes out, might require another discussion with this committee. So for example, we are looking very closely at focus on energy credits for the lighting retrofits as part of this project. There's some tax credits related to energy savings that we're looking at. The consultant firm we've hired is a full-service building envelope firm, so they're also looking at opportunities with geothermal heating in the ponds and potentially solar opportunities related to the overall electric loads out there. There is an HVAC unit budgeted in the capital improvement plan within the next 2 to 3 years, and so there's the firm we have on hand is really kind of trying to help us take a look at making sure we're planning the infrastructure appropriately for all of what the needs are going to be out there. The infrastructure, the think fiber connections, pretty much all has to be new because there isn't a lot of usable audio and visual stuff from the original construction. So that is happening. We are also looking to apply for the Flexible Facilities Grant Program the state recently announced for an addition to the building, which would be potentially for 4-H offices and other county uses for the elderly or the health department in coordination with AIS. And as part of that, some of these infrastructure upgrades for think fiber, think the connections between the buildings that would otherwise be a part of this project cost. So we're looking, those types of things within the budget of this project could potentially require additional county board approvals, receipt of funding, should those advance. So we've done that before with grants. We applied for the Energy Innovation Grant out here, which we did not receive. And so there was not a resolution done in advance with that grant because it was kind of if we don't get the money, then we wouldn't need to have that conversation. So we're operating in that context whereby we are doing this project, and so we are pursuing funding sources where it makes sense. And then should we be in a position to accept funding or need other types with this project, we would then be coming forward back to this committee to say, okay, here's the grant, here's the funding we would be looking at adding to this budget. And depending on how the budget conversations shake out, which decisions within the project scope need to be made to either operate this project within the total budget or potentially partner with AIS or others to secure any other funding that might be necessary. So we don't have that work done yet. Again, we have signed an initial contract with a very, very good full-service building envelope firm that specializes in audiovisual and acoustics. So this project is moving, and this is really just kind of an update of that if you have any other questions about this project.
When do you expect to do this? I believe we need it, but when do we want or like to have the project start working on this?
Yeah, so we're expecting original reports back the end of June, and then Stacy's nodding. Tell me if I'm going wrong. And then after that, depending on how quickly we make decisions, they would go into. We have them contracted for bid design, development, construction management, project management, all the way through the end of the project. So they would be helping prepare those documents, and then we'd be working on the bid packages that would go out, and likely there's some timing consideration. Stacy, do you know offhand when we're targeting construction?
I would.
2026, probably.
Okay, anybody else?
Or winter 2025, 2026, that season.
All right. Anybody else? Comments, questions? Okay. Well,
I do. I just want to clarify, speak of the budget for this going up to about $8 million and saying about $6 million of it should be covered by GO bonds, and the fund balance and excess sales taxes covering the rest, which would be up to about $2 million. So that is that extra $2 million? Is that already kind of considered in our budget over these next couple of years? That you have, excess sales in the fund balance?
The short answer is no. Right now I have about $6.2 million to do this project, and I will have a better answer for that in the next 30 to 60 days as it relates to either scaling down the scope of the project, which is one option, or receiving additional funds from another source, like one of these grants that we're pursuing. That's another option. It's one of the reasons why we are aggressively pursuing grants that might make sense for this project. And then also, there could be future conversation about, is additional funding required? But at this point, there is no other authorization beyond the $6.2 million. There is also substantial energy savings to be realized. However, that would be realized by the Agricultural Industrial Society because they currently pay the electricity bills. So there's some conversation about that as well, as if that savings comes into play at all.
And I think with some of the grants for the energy savings and stuff like that, I hope we can qualify, because obviously if you replace all that lighting out there with LED, it would be probably a fairly significant cost, but should pay for itself over time. And I think that's the kind of thing that grant is looking for. So hopefully that'll be something we'll be able to qualify for and move forward on. The audiovisual equipment, this is basically just stuff that would be used for larger size convention or stuff like that, I'm assuming?
Yes, think projectors and screens. Also, I think the big improvement out there would actually be the audio.
Yeah, the audio's terrible out there. That I know. Okay.
But yes, there would be new screens as well and kind of new layouts for the rooms.
I'm sorry, do you have another? Can you clarify? You spoke of solar. Do you have, potential vision or thoughts of adding solar?
We have said yes to having our consultants look at that as part of what they've done is kind of scanned the funding opportunities for energy efficiencies that you would bring into a project. So at this point, we have just said that, yep, let's take a look at it. No decisions have been made about whether or not we would do that. I know we talked about whether or not we aren't sure if there's new technologies in solar or not. That would, in the past, it was, according to the highway commissioner and facilities who've been involved, it was looked at, but the weight loads weren't sustainable on the roofs. So we aren't sure. They looked at the Ziegler building. They did not look at the pavilion. And we have some additional property further away. So I think it was kind of a high level feasibility look that the firm is doing at this point.
Okay. Yeah, if you may put it out like in the fields or something to.
Yeah. Right now it's not in the scope of the project, but there's potentially it opens up opportunities if we were to take a look at something like that.
And you spoke of potential expansion of a building?
Yes. So one of the grants that we are pursuing is a flexible facilities grant through the state, whereby they are funding based on COVID-19 projects that increase remote access to healthcare monitoring, work, and education. So as a multi-purpose facility, the Fair Park does some of these things, and so building construction is an eligible expense, as is audiovisual equipment, computers, all of that within their program. So what we have talked about, and this is related to this project, but also related to some of the initiative to potentially see if the Fair Park could house 4-H, would be to construct an expansion with additional classrooms, remote classrooms or multi-purpose space potentially above it. If you're looking directly at the pavilion on the left, so there are bathrooms that would be accessed that are currently to the outside. So we have a very high level concept, and we are looking to see if we can combine that with some of this the initial project scope, again, in an application. There really isn't a decision point until we would be awarded the money, and then we would be coming back and say, hey, this is what this is, and do we want to do it or not?
But your vision is, adding potential those classrooms, like you said, for 4-H.
It's about 30, I think right now it's sketched in as about 3,500 square feet, to give you an idea.
Okay, interesting.
I don't know if all of you have seen, we recently received an envelope from a group that is kind of looking for space and some printer work and stuff like that. And I think, you know, it's a good community group. It looks like it's not a huge ask. It's kind of something that's falling between the cracks between UW Extension and whatnot. Look it over and you'll see, but this could be an opportunity if that were to come about, that might be, groups like this could utilize that space as well, possibly. Well, the 4-H would be one of the users, probably the main user, but we also have local civic groups that do some really good work throughout Washington County, but they don't necessarily have a centralized meeting space or stuff like that. So some of that was done through Extension and now could possibly be done with this site. So it's something to consider in the future, that it's not just 4-H, but it would help other small groups of people that are doing good out there. So it's an idea. So let me float that right now. Anything else on the Fair Park modernization project? All right.
It's interesting what the consultants come up with.
We'll look forward. It's going to be a big project for the future. I mean, you know, there's going to be a lot going on. And I guess one last thing I'd like to close with is that I'm really thrilled to see this happening. I was there standing next to Tommy Thompson when he cut the ribbon for this Fair Park back in the 90s. And that's when I first moved out here, and I worked for Coca-Cola, and we picked up the contract for Fair Park back then. And so I've been there from the beginning, and I'm still there every year. I never miss it. I always take vacation. So yes, I will be volunteering. So hit me up. So it's good to see a good working relationship with AIS and with this committee and with our board. It wasn't always so, but I think we're really on the right track now. And I strongly encourage this collaboration with each other, because I really want to move that park forward. I want it to be self-sustaining. I want it to be growth. I want it to have just a massive pile of cash for just in case of emergencies and all that kind of thing. I mean, I'd love this. There's so much possibility with this Fair Park. And I don't think it's really realized its full potential, because it's an outstanding facility with a lot to offer, centrally located, right on the freeways. I mean, it's just got a ton to offer. So I think now we are finally on the right path, and I'd love to see this move forward. Okay, moving on. We'll take a motion on a resolution for shared services for Richfield.
Motion?
Motion by Pam, seconded by Tina Pridemore. Excuse me. Motion by Supervisor Conrath and seconded by Supervisor Pridemore. And Deb's here to speak. Okay. Deborah Sealski, Community Development Director, the floor is yours.
Yeah, good afternoon. So this is the same resolution that was brought forward last month for Kewaskum and Jackson, but for the Village of Richfield is for shared service for planning services with the village. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, any questions on the board? Supervisor Krebs?
With all these positions, I'm assuming they're going to have, between the different municipalities, the position is pretty much the same from the county's perspective for as far as the day-to-day operations, or what level involvement they will have with the community?
Yeah, so the cover report provides a kind of a generic overview of bullets of what they could provide, but in the agreement that the county has with each of the municipalities, I specify what projects that they might be working on for 2024. And for Richfield, we had talked about working with Sewer PAC on the Village Comprehensive Plan update, including public engagement components, assisting with the updated village application forms, processes, and procedures, just to help update those and make it more efficient. And then also assisting the development of the Fireman's Park Master Plan. So those are some of the three projects that the village administrator and I had identified for this position. But the specific work is spelled out for each of the municipalities in the agreement. And then at the end of the year, end of each year, then I will be meeting with each of the municipalities and getting an understanding of what those projects are for the following year, and then prioritize overall for the county.
Okay, so from the general public's standpoint in that community, will this position be the face of that community for planning and zoning, or are the communities expected to have kind of?
No, they will not. They will not be doing the day-to-day zoning administration and enforcement. They will really be helping each of the villages on, and more likely, special projects. Helping update their comm plan, helping update maybe their ordinances, but not the actual day-to-day enforcement of those.
When a project, like thinking commercially, like is brought to a village for a development or something, would a project like that start to get passed on to this position, or would that still, or would that?
I think that it depends on the level of expertise. So in some municipalities, the level of expertise may not be as sophisticated as who I hope to hire for this position, and so they may have provide assistance with that, but they're not going to be that face of the community.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Question.
Supervisor Conrath?
I'm sorry, thank you. How much bandwidth do we as a county have to take on to assist more municipalities with their planning? Right.
So this is one full-time position for the county, and I anticipate that we have the three municipalities that have signed on already, and when we do hire an individual, then I'll be sitting down and prioritizing all of these projects. They only have just over 2,000 hours a year. We want to minus a couple hundred hours just for internal discussions and training and PTO. So we're left with probably about 1,700 hours for the municipalities. Just think of how it might work for a planning consulting firm. So they're going to be, tracking their hours that they have for each one of the municipalities, and determining how much time it would take to do, help the village of Richfield on this project while helping the village of Jackson on a different project, and just identifying and tracking what that time is over the course of the year. And the time that they spend with each municipality will change as the projects change as the years go by. But I'll be leading that prioritization of all of those projects. So,
yeah, how do we ensure that we're, say all of a sudden next month we get everybody lined up? All the other municipalities say, hey, we want assistance too.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's only
how are we gonna
there's only so many hours that one position would be able to do that. Mm-hmm. So we would. Cross that bridge when we get to it. So, yeah. Right now, having three municipalities and the projects that have been identified makes sense, and can certainly fill one full-time position. Once we start getting additional municipalities on board, then that's a whole different conversation that we'll need to have.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? And I would just kind of add to that keep in mind the overall goal here is to work with our local municipalities. It saves them a great deal of money. which they can then utilize for a lot of the problems that they're having, such as roads and infrastructure and things like that. This whole plan, we have a lot of good resources here at the county, so even adding an employee is still a huge savings. While it costs us at the county more, it's huge savings for the municipalities. And we all are taxpayers, whether we're paying our municipality or the county. So if we can find ways to share services overall, we're going to save money as taxpayers. So I think that's the general idea of this whole shared services thing. So very important for that. Okay, with no other questions, I guess we'll vote on this. All affirming, say aye. Aye. And opposed? And the ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. We will take up general fund transfer support for Washington County Agricultural and Industrial Society for Fair Park initiatives. First, I'll need a motion and a second. Motion by Supervisor Krebs. Second by Supervisor Pridemore. Okay, Jamie, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I am going to ask the CEO of the Washington County Fair Park, Stacy Holland, to step up as well. But I want to just start by saying this resolution, and I hope you had a chance to read the packet and the history that went into the hiring of the CEO and the new mission and vision out at the Fair Park, because this resolution really boils down to doing what we said we were going to do. Which during that conversation, when we were talking about, at the time it was a very different scenario when we were making those commitments, but we talked about doing three things: financing the audiovisual project, which we have done, supporting the hiring of staff out there, which we knew they needed to do. And so the conversation at the time was that their budget didn't allow for additional leadership or additional capacity. And so we wanted to basically, and you've probably heard the county executive Shulman use the term take money off the table. But this idea that we need you to be brave and try to execute on the plan you've come up with. And so we pledged, and we used as just an example, $150,000 a year for 5 years. And so this resolution is the 2024 and 2025 amount of that kind of commitment to them, noting that any future money that they would request, we would be asking them to request again as part of future budgets. And then kind of that third piece in there, which was about the Silver Lining Amphitheater, I do want to point that out as well, because we do plan to, in the next several months with this committee, be having that conversation. So we are kind of coming back in a healthier position. And so with that kind of introduction, I'd like to ask our CEO at the Fair Park to just provide us with a little bit of an update. I know that she hasn't been before this committee before, or maybe she has, I can't recall, and an introduction of kind of how it's going, how the transition is going, what is the state of the Fair Park and the AIS financial operation as it relates specifically to this request.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Land Use and Planning Committee board members. I want to say hello. I met some of you perhaps at the county meeting before the most recent election. This board has obviously changed in terms of its makeup, this subcommittee. I did address the previous. I first would like to offer an opportunity at any time to meet with each of you individually as your schedules allows, to talk about some of the views that were shared earlier. Thank you for your comments regarding the Fair Park and the opportunity there. So at any time, I'd be willing to meet with you individually, and we could answer questions about the organization, AIS, in more detail, the state of affairs there, and maybe just some insights or ideation you all may have as we move forward. So having said that, and again, thank you for having me in front of this group. I wanted to say that I have now been with the Agricultural and Industrial Society supporting the Washington County Fair Park and Conference Center, as well as supporting the organization of the Washington County Fair for 5 months now. During that time, I've had an opportunity to take stock of I think what the current state was. So to the county executive, to the county board, to the land use and planning committee, this committee, maybe not these members, in advance of bringing me on and having this vision some 18 to 24 months ago, I think it was a decision well received. Not because I have the job, but because as I see what's happening there, I see the opportunity in front of us relative to the asset that is at the county and I don't want to say the way it has been run, but what has evolved there in terms of the type of events that are happening there and really being visionary as to what the Fair Park can be and which strategic directions we can go in. So having been here again just for 5 months, there were observations, and we've shared those within the AIS board. I won't go into detail about those here, but would be happy again to share that the organization itself, AIS, and how it was staffed, I think was very effective at putting on an amazing county fair. I think that was one thing they did well. I think running an event center and a conference center as a business was not something that perhaps they were equipped to do. And not, against them for any reason. It was the structure and it was the direction that was misaligned. So again, to the county executive and the county board to have the vision to say, we know we need to do something different. And AIS as an organization in its former structure and its former staffing of Fair Park was not equipped to do that. I believe that we will be equipped to do that. I believe that we will move forward with some bold strategic direction that will come in the months after the county fair. Once we get through this big event with our group, I fully intend to bring forward to both the county executive through this land use and planning committee as well, and then ultimately to the board, ideation of what the Fair Park can be. You mentioned earlier that you were here and moved into the county when the Fair Park opened. Notably, that was in 1999. We had the first fair 25 years ago. So this summer we will be celebrating the 25th anniversary of the county fair at Fair Park. So I'm pleased to be here for that monumentous event. And I'm pleased to be joining the organization and putting forward ideas for the next 25 years on how the Fair Park can be a more integral part of the county. I believe there is a lot of civic opportunity there, both through 4-H, through a lot of the organizations in the county, such as the United Way, perhaps this other organization you referred to in the letter. I think the utilization of the facility can be expanded to really help service civic-minded opportunities. But then beyond that, we do need to make the Fair Park, a break-even organization, right? It is here for the businesses, it is here for agriculture, and it currently had not been operating under AIS at a break-even level. And that is why I'm here, and my full intention is to put forth business models and plans that we can execute to meet the objectives of supporting agriculture in the county, to supporting industry in the county, to being a forward-facing civic use facility in the county at a break-even opportunity and not something that requires the type of funding we're looking here to provide. But we're not there today, and that is a very true statement. There is work to be done. The amount of business and contracts that have been taken by AIS for the event center are not favorable to that end goal of being a not-for-profit break-even, and we need to work through the contracts that we have, and we need to move forward and provide the content at the Fair Center that aligns both with the mission of the county, the mission of AIS, and also what serves as an opportunity to have a profitable enough event center there that it does break even. It's absolutely doable based on the work that I've done in the last few months and taking a look at what has been put in there. We can get there, and I think we can be a next generation, so it's not an add-on, but something that's, I think, a step change at the Fair Park.
Very good. Questions?
Just like get through the 25th anniversary and go from there.
Yeah, there's work to be done for certain. This will not be, 12 months and it's all better, but I absolutely within 2 to 3 years, we can certainly get things stabilized there. That I'm not concerned about being able to do that. We have line of sight to that. There are things that just needed to be tended to there, and we can absolutely do those. Then I think we can be bold in terms of how we'd like to go forward, with the Fair Park in terms of its utilization and opportunities there to, have it be the things that I think so many people see when they drive by and they wish were there, whether that's entertainment or whether that's a greater investment in agriculture, whether that's a greater investment in some of the, civic interests within the county. There's opportunities, and once we decide, we'll be able to execute on that and go.
Okay, anybody else, anything to say?
I'm looking forward to the 25th anniversary, and like I said, moving forward.
Yeah, and I think, for those who are new, only a few years back, the relationship was very poor. Brian will remember the meeting we had, and I really am thrilled with AIS and recognizing the partnership with the county rather than an adversarial position that it used to be before. So I think that it's really kudos to them, and they're stepping up and saying, yes, we need to work together, that this is not us versus them. This is all of us working together. I like to see that kind of cooperation. Because it was a big ask on our part and a big ask on their part to say, that's a lot of money, but I think we're moving in the right direction. And so I am looking forward to meeting with you. I would definitely desire a one-on-one so we can...
Thank you. If I may just also, I would like to thank Jamie, and I've done this publicly, but I think she's been a big part of why that relationship has been symbiotic, at least since I've joined, and I think in the months prior to that. You have an amazing asset here in terms of leadership, and I will say not only did she have the skill set capable, and I think we see that through her work, but she has something that's equally as important, and that's the passion, and she brings that to every conversation that we have, and so I'm extremely thankful that she's working with us. I mean, honestly, we've made a lot of progress in a very short period of time in our conversations, and she has been, a complete asset to the relationship with the IAS board for myself personally and on behalf of the county. She's very well represented. So, thank you.
Very good. Okay, so I guess we need to move on with the vote. Hearing no more questions, this will be basically to authorize the funds. So, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? None. All right, passes unanimously. One moment. Sorry about that. My computer died, so we we want to move on. What's that? No, I'm good. Thank you. All right. So finally, we're at the update on Heritage Trails. Now, we are not going to be taking action today, as the plan still has a few more tweaks to go. So we moved this to just an update and kind of get an idea. There's a few things with safety and trails and things like that we still want to work out. So at this point,
Yep.
Just go ahead.
I'm going to ask our Parks and Trails Manager, Logan Bliss, to just kind of give an update on the process. But everything that you just outlined is correct. And we are intending a resolution to come before this committee next month, and then to the full county board. And so one of the things to be listening for as he talks is really what you all might need, what other discussion. Is there anything else before you see this plan in front of you and are asked to, make some approval of it? And I think we really wanted to make sure we took that time, and we're going to kind of go through kind of what we're seeing. Logan.
Thank you, Jamie. What was that?
I appreciate that.
Oh, okay. All right. So yes, as stated, why is this not working? There we go. We've, I guess, delayed the process of moving forward with the approval for a few reasons. And really the three big ones are additional planning, or we've identified that additional planning is needed for funding necessary safety and rescue equipment at Heritage Trails. There is conflicting park user interest expressed in our comments that we've been receiving since really both of our public meetings, both in January and even more so after our, I think it was June 6th, I held a public listening session. And then...
was it the one online?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And then some of our neighbor concerns over the expansion of the mountain bike trails, which some of those concerns are, added noise in the park, the increase in the number of, people in the park, and then the trail proximity to property boundaries. Those are really the three, main concerns that we hear from our neighbors. So we wanted to, again, take some time and really make sure we get some of this right before coming forward with a plan approval. So before I go into, my next slides are going to kind of go through just a real broad overview of the proposed trails in 2024 through 2026 that we're looking at adding. But before we go through theirs, I want to make a few points that I think have been commonly misconstrued since, the public has seen some of these, and that is the locations on the map are not exact, and they will need to be field verified. You'll see on, even some of those trails will slightly go across the road on the picture. You're going to see that obviously is not going to happen. So just please keep that in mind. Under no circumstances will new mountain bike trails be constructed over existing disc golf holes. There's been a huge misunderstanding in the disc golf community that, we're getting rid of disc golf holes at the park. That's not the case. We're not going over disc golf holes. So again, that will be field verified. We're going to work with the disc golf community on trails if they are going to be built on the east side of the park where current disc golf holes are. And then the last piece is trails will be built with a minimum 20-foot buffer from all property boundaries. I'm going to talk about that a little more in depth later on, but just keep that in mind. So again, you might see a trail that goes right next to a property line. It's not going on that property line. There is going to be a 20-foot buffer. So for 2024, not pictured on here are the first, construction that's going to happen is finishing the trail called Flow Rider, which was already approved for 2023, and that construction was not finished. So that was already authorized. That was the first step. Well, should I say that was the second step? The first step was finishing our emergency access routes, which have been, the two main ones have been completed. We are adding a third one. Can you see my mouse? Yes.
Yep.
So these red lines are emergency access routes. We have one here off the park, and then we have one on the north end off of Sherman Road. We identified in collaboration with Slinger FD that we needed a auxiliary route off of this emergency access route leading back to the trails that have already been built in kind of the southern wing of the park. So we have been working on that. That will need to be completed before we open the Flow Rider Trail. So those were the first two steps for 2024. The third one, or the third planned trail, is this Black Flow Trail here, kind of on the western border of that northern half and then stretching across the northern border, and that parallels the existing Double Dragon Trail. And then there's a Blue Flow Trail to the south. Again, that will hook up with the existing Flow Rider Trail. And then a planned youth skills area, learn to ride area is also in 2024. So some of the concerns with these trails that we've heard. there is some neighbor concern and disc golf interest, or the disc golf group over the Black Flow Trail location. Losing my mouse again, in this northern half of the park. You'll see in that packet that I provided you, which we're obviously not going to go through that entire packet tonight. The disc golf community has aspirations of adding holes to the existing 18-hole course, and some of that area where they would like to add holes is in the area where this Black Flow Trail exists. So they've expressed some concerns, and then obviously we have some neighbor concerns with the proximity to the property boundary. Additionally, there are concerns with rescue operation feasibility for this Blue Flow Trail to the south if there is not a way to fund the new necessary equipment at the park. And the one thing that we are planning to do is, under our existing MOU, is approve the skills area. This area has been really not controversial at all. We haven't heard any controversy surrounding this trail, and it will give, while this plan is in a delayed state, it will give something new and fresh to the park that the community greatly wants, the mountain biking community. Coming out of our January 30th meeting, this was something that a lot of riders expressed interest in wanting. There's a lot of youth organizations that use this park as a learn to ride for young kids, and this is something they really wanted. It's close to our parking areas. If there happens to be an injury, it's really easy to get to. So to at least keep something new while this plan is under review, we are planning to move forward under our existing MOU, which gives us the ability to approve building this area at least in 2024 if we run into more roadblocks with our full plan. Okay.
If I could comment on that quickly. So I'm very much in favor of this particular project right here. This skills training area, I believe, actually makes our trails safer because you will learn how to do these jumps or tricks or hills, or how to, get over them and stuff properly before you actually go out on the trail and start doing it. I think this is very necessary for the safety of the people who will be utilizing these trails. And a lot of them I met over this past weekend are young people that are learning for the first time, and I'm planning on going out there with my bike real soon and seeing for myself as well. And I have no way of learning, how to do those rock jumps and stuff like that. So I think this will help with our safety overall. So I just wanted to put that out there, that I really like this part of the project because having the skills before you hit the trail is going to be necessary for the safety of that trail.
Yes, thank you. Moving on to 2025. The first priority is obviously going to be finishing anything that does not get completed in 2024, which at this point I anticipate that will be the case. Moving on to new trails in the 2025 plan is this blue single track trail on the east side of the park. It really just goes around the border of the park. This type of trail was the most sought after trail coming out of our January 30th meeting. That was one of the questions that we had on our agenda for all the breakout discussions. People really wanted a trail with distance, and that was at an easy intermediate level that they could ride. This one is approximately 1.5 miles. So it really, that side of the park, if you're familiar with the park, is really flat. So you don't have to deal with terrain. It's basically wooded on the borders, which is why it's kind of shaped the way that it is. And again, you'll see these little white areas are the existing disc golf holes. And again, we're going around them. We're not going through them. So please keep that in mind. Next, for 2025 is the Blue Flow Trail again in the western
One
part of
moment,
the park.
Logan.
What was that?
Supervisor Conrath.
Yeah, excuse me, Logan. For the Blue Flow Trail, the border,
You mean the
borders one of the
The one on the east side, the single track on the east side?
Yeah.
Yep.
Borda is one of our citizens who has some strong concerns and has the horse farm. Is there any way to move that, further away from their property line to help decrease those concerns of her horses being spooked, or?
It's something I'm open to discussing. I feel like I know the number has been thrown out there, and you'll see that in your comments. Well, there should be a minimum 300-foot buffer. Well, if I had our boundaries on GIS right now, I did this before coming to this meeting, because I figured that was going to come up. If you take a 300-foot buffer and you look at let's just say right in the middle, that probably goes about halfway down into our property. This property is narrow. Each of these are. So if that were the case, this trail, they wouldn't even think about building it. And then you ask the question, well, why are the disc golf holes allowed to be that close to the property boundary, but not the mountain bike trails? So that is in consideration. Again, that's why we have delayed this plan. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we know those concerns are out there. The disc golf community still has concerns with this trail as well that we feel we need to work through more before coming forward with an approval.
I have a question. Where's the noise coming from? These are mountain bikes, they're not motorbikes, right?
Correct. I think it's mostly noise from the people braking on their bikes. You get some dust in your brakes, you'll have a little squeal from your brakes. This is a sport where, people get excited, they yell, they scream, they're having fun out there. You get a kid that goes off a jump, they're going to yell and scream about it.
Okay, I'm just wondering where the noise, I didn't know.
So that is the noise. I don't know I believe there was some requests last year. The town of Polk is in charge of the noise ordinance out here. And I feel like there was some requests last year to have them go out there and try to enforce that, to see if that was an issue, if there were noise ordinances being broken. I never got anything back from Polk. Did you, Jamie? No. So I don't know if that was done. But I would be surprised if the noise ordinance was being broken out there and the level of noise was that high.
Okay.
And I was out there this past Saturday for about 4 hours, and I didn't hear any screaming or anything. And there was about 40 bikers there. And a few disc golfers too. I was there from approximately, I want to say, 11 o'clock until about 3, right around there. So it was pretty prime time.
And I have no doubt there's obviously increased noise out there, and you'll see in some of my later slides we talk about the increase in park usage. This park had virtually no usage prior to our trails coming in, and now we saw, I think it was a 286 or 268% increase. So now instead of having a few hundred people out there over the course of the entire year, you now have thousands. Mm-hmm. And so you are going to have more noise at this park.
Yeah, it's not really like breaking an ordinance type of noise. It's that, intermittent, like whatever, Yahoo,
yeah,
jumps and stuff.
Okay, yeah,
that's
kids,
sudden,
yeah.
Which could, say, potentially startle the citizens' horses, and the town of Polk chairman too has been listening to the constituents' concerns and has been out there and has had discussions with the constituents.
Okay.
So I have one more thing.
Yes.
Is there any way you can put like a barrier of like trees out there that counteract some of that noise,
This trail is going to be in the woods, so.
It's in the, okay. I'm just thinking more towards the land where the.
We have proposed certain options. That was a cost share noise barrier option. With our neighbor on that side of the park for the existing Double Dragon Trail. We never, came to an agreement on that. But outside of, in that area where you're already in a wooded setting, outside of actually constructing a, physical fence that does not allow, a tall fence, I I don't think planting additional trees necessarily.
Okay.
I would be, you're already in a mature stand of trees. Planting young trees, they're going to be shaded out and not
And
grow.
Logan, I'll just cut in because certainly a fence is an option. I mean,
Yes.
I know back from the conversations we had with other uses in this park, some higher level activities just recommend that, right? Because it keeps that visible barrier. So certainly that is something that if that was, those types of things can be done.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I walked this too just yesterday with a couple of the citizens and their land in the whole area. But it's heavily wooded.
So it is heavily wooded. See, I wasn't able to go there with my leg, my calf muscle.
And we can follow up on that as well, but just to note that in the past, it is my understanding from my conversations that the neighbors did not want a physical barrier. So I think that's part of that conversation of if you're, doing that for the neighbors, we would want to make sure that's something that they would also want.
Okay. That's a good one.
The chair will recognize Supervisor Gundrum, who is a county supervisor within the area. Supervisor Gundrum.
How many other cost sharing? Because I'm not aware that, the county put up a bike trail. And so I don't know that it would be fair to say to a resident, now you need to put in an expense for a fence. It ought to all be, if you're going to put it up, it ought to be a county expense, not a cost share. But do you have other cost sharing agreements in parks?
With other citizens who have concerns after a park's been built and the utilization has increased.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Mr. Chairman, I know that when they put up the homeless shelter, the cost of a barrier was borne by the county, not by the residents or people using abutting properties.
I believe we offered to pay for the fence, didn't we?
I don't remember if it was full payment or if it was partial, but the rest, getting back to the other parts of that question too, I'm not aware of any other barriers that we've constructed besides Henschke Hillside, the boat launch. Do you know how that was?
We would, as part of a plan, that is part of the purpose of a plan, right? If it was determined that we wanted to do X, then we would do X. And even now going back, that's something that, and I'm looking at,
It's just that you said cost sharing.
right. And I can't remember, I would want to check the verbiage of that original offer because there was some cost sharing as it related to landscaping on the other property, right? Along whether it was their house or their, how it was going versus installing a fence on our property boundary, right? So I think there's some differentiation there. I think we had offered even cost sharing for landscaping up to a certain amount that the person would want to do on their own property. And I think that was the thought process that we were trying to really give a good option to the neighbor that would want to pursue something. So yes, we can do. Honestly, we're not opposed to any of those types of mitigation if they're deemed necessary by the committee as part of this conversation. That's why we want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to review the materials and look at it. And if there are additional requests between now and next month, for example, go look and measure exactly how far away that trail is, or take a look at specifically some of these things, because without going out there looking if there was room for a fence or how that would work, it's hard to commit to something like that, and we wouldn't want a motion without having an opportunity to see if it's feasible.
And that's a good jumping off point for me. I don't want to get too far off the track here. We do have, this is actually an update, so I want to keep to the update portion of this and not get too far into specifics on problem solving at this time. So Logan, if you would continue.
Okay. So off the trail on the east, the blue single track on the east side, we would install another blue flow trail. Again, If you remember the slide previously, there's one to the south, so those would connect. And then in the far southern part of the park, for those of you who've been out there, there's kind of like a wooded knob in there when you first drive in, and the proposal would be to put a pro-style jump line similar to the one that we have that parallels our emergency access route down in that southern portion of the park. As far as issues with some of these trails, we talked about here the one on the east side, the blue single track. And then the additional concern would be rescue operations and how they would be feasible, again, with that blue flow trail if we are not able to achieve funding for the new equipment, since that is a remote area of the park with some topography challenges.
There is one thing I did want to add to in my little trip out there, just for you. I already talked to Jamie about it. While I was out there and I was basically canvassing the people out there, there was one thing that I thought was kind of intriguing, which was areas where people could shoot video safely or possibly take pictures. And if there's a possibility to work with Metro to see if there's places we could add that in,
Kind of like a little stop-off point.
Yeah, and it wasn't, I mean, they told me it was a lot of people were like, you know, if we had an observation deck or a place where we could do video or take pictures, especially where some of the more heavy technical skills areas are, we'd love to be able to do that. And I thought, well, that's an intriguing idea.
Yes, it is.
So, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. Moving on to 2026. Again, there's a proposed black single track in the north portion of the park, which would connect to the existing double dragon trail and then the black single track that you saw in 2024. Moving on from that would be this connector route.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just want to make a point too about that black flow trail, regarding the constituents' concerns. Is bordering their land, and currently how it's planned, they would be able to look like directly into their bedroom, and if it can be backed off that property line as much as possible, at least so they can't look directly into their bedroom from the trail. Just something to consider over this next month.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So moving on, this connector route that you see here, which is the red dashed line, this route is really essentially just going to be a single pathway that really connects everything in the park. If this plan is fully approved, if this eastern portion comes in, you'll be able to connect to that, and then you can ride back up to our existing trails in this area of the park. There's already that kind of beginner trail they call Fraggle Rocks that travels through here that you could connect up to these single track trails. So really that kind of just is in here to connect everything together. So a rider can come to this park and not have to go across the parking lot to get somewhere else. It can continuously ride across all the trails. And then capping off 2026 is an intermediate flow trail that essentially goes around that pro jump line in 2025. Again, there is, as Supervisor Conrath mentioned, there's neighbor concerns with the location of this black single trail, as well as disc golf concerns. The proximity to our existing disc golf holes up here in the north, and again, their desired expansion that they would like to have. And then rescue operations again with this intermediate flow trail. There is topography here that can be challenging. It is very close to our road, but if somebody were to get hurt on kind of the opposite side of that hill, we would need to have either new equipment or really good access routes brought in there to make sure that we can rescue people in a timely fashion.
Chair recognizes Supervisor Pridemore.
Has anyone injured on these trails?
Yes. How many this year? 7?
Yeah, I think 6 this year, 13 last year.
Yeah.
Just Was it major or just?
They were severe enough where it required
Okay.
EMS out there. I mean, the fire department had to actually come get them out. So those are like, you can consider those recordable accidents where EMS and fire had to be called to rescue people.
Yeah, the potential for a serious accident is real. You're going through trees, and
Yeah, this is a sport, and riders recognize that. There isn't a rider out there that expects that, this is a, safe sport like walking. I mean, yes, you can get hurt walking, but relatively it's safe, right? People who ride mountain bike trails understand that there is a risk, similar to if you're going to go snowboarding or skiing. There is a risk that you can be hurt severely.
Right. Okay.
All right, so the packet that you all have that we handed out to you guys, you're going to see our original and then our renewed MOU with Metro Mountain Bikers. The original was signed in 2020, I believe, and the updated one in 2022. You'll also see Slinger FD provided us with a letter highlighting the importance of the new rescue equipment for them so that they can efficiently get to people who may be injured. You will also see the proposed disc golf expansion. You'll see a lot of comments in there from the public asking for more disc golf holes out there, and they are in conflicting areas with some of these new proposed mountain bike trails. So you'll have an opportunity to see, what their proposal is for disc golf and where the mountain bike trails are and where the land that was designated originally for the potential construction of mountain bike trails, that conflicts with what the disc golf community would like out there. So you'll see in the letters from the public kind of this confliction of, well, we want disc golf holes here instead of mountain bike trails. And obviously the mountain bikers want mountain bike trails instead of more disc golf at the park. So you'll kind of see that as you read through some of these letters from the public that are in there. And again, just to highlight that there's letters from both the disc golf community, the mountain bike community, and then our neighbors that have their concerns with the proximity to the trails and their lot lines. So it's kind of all in there. I tried to organize it so you'll see kind of sections of each, but there's a lot of them. I think there's like 120 pages in there. So just to highlight the importance of why we want to expand the mountain bike trails at the park, and by we, the county and Metro. I already highlighted this prior to the installation of our first mountain bike trails in 2021. Heritage Trails County Park was the least utilized park out of what we call our Big Six, which is Heritage Trails, Homestead Hollow, Glacier Hills, Sandy Knoll, Ackerman's Grove, and Leonard J.R. County Park. I haven't looked at 2024's data, but if Heritage Trails is not the most used park, it's right there with our most used park. We grew 286% since the installation of these mountain bike trails in 2021. This is a very unique amenity to southeastern Wisconsin. It's really kind of a rarity. You don't see many mountain bike trails like this because a lot of land does not offer the topography and the wooded scenery that Heritage Trails does. There's a lot of park systems have hiking trails. There's a lot of disc golf courses in the area. We have a very successful disc golf course at Sandy Knoll County Park, but there's not a lot of really high quality mountain biking opportunities in southeast Wisconsin. And then, continuing to expand upon this, this trail system will lead to further park usage, not only for our residents in Washington community, but really the greater community of Wisconsin. We have park data, park pass sale data showing how many users come in from all over the state and the region. I mean, Minnesota, Illinois, Michigan, they come here for mountain biking. So kind of highlighting what our next steps are. We, committee members, Jamie and myself, we really need to take a deep dive, review some of the public comment, the concerns, before we move forward with a full plan. Again, that's why we are doing an update here and not an approvals, because we recognize that we have more work to do. Us as the Parks Department, we're going to be working with Slinger Fire Department on how we're going to fund the new equipment, which is a big part of this plan, making sure that we can have that available in case of an injury. And then continue the discussions with our neighbors, with Metro, with our other park user groups, and see if there's a common ground that we can achieve. That's really the desired step, is to get somewhere that everybody can live with.
Well, let me interject here, Logan, if I may.
Yeah.
I did mention to Jamie, and something I think might be useful as far as our disc golf versus mountain bike. While I was there, and this was only one day, I plan on going out again soon, there was about 40 mountain bikers on Saturday, in and out. I mean, probably even more than that, but there were people coming and going, and I really only saw like a set of disc golfers. So if there's any kind of way, or at least think about kind of getting a census on just the utilization, one versus the other. I mean, while I do understand the disc golfers wanting to expand, everything's new and exciting, and that's great. Utilization, I think, is probably the most important thing. Handling this park more like a business that serves customers and customers' wants and needs, that they're going to actually show up, I think is probably a better utilization of the land. Now, I'm not saying that we should necessarily go with mountain bike trails versus disc golf, but I'd like to see what the numbers are so that we can kind of determine, or at least give us a little bit of what we're looking at.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a part of our our thought process, and we want to be sensitive that there obviously is a group that really is passionate about the disc golf out there, but at the same time, and this isn't really a platform for the disc golf discussion, but my main concern, and I think Jamie shares this, is the maintenance of the current disc golf course. You'll see there's a letter in there highlighting the issues, the weeds, the trash is never picked up. That's something that, we rely on the disc golf community to police. Metro has proven that they handle their maintenance. They do all that. We have to cut the grass for the disc golf course out there, and, then the complaints come in about the wild parsnip when somebody throws a disc outside the fairway, and taking care of that. We spend a lot of time and money just maintaining that already, whereas the mountain bike trails, we're not out there, fixing them after it rains. So there's that aspect as well. And there just hasn't been a lot of maintenance done on the existing course, which is why I've been hesitant to propose additional holes out there. So once we kind of take the next month to work through this, hopefully, we can get this figured out within the month. We'll then bring a full plan to this committee.
Okay.
Any additional questions or comments?
The floor is open. Supervisor Krebs.
Thank you. A couple of comments for you guys to build into your future recommendations. I didn't see any numbers attached to it, but for the rescue equipment, is there any budgets put together for that yet, or estimated price tags that's on the wish list?
Yes, and if it pleases the board, I know that the fire chief from Slinger FD is here today and could maybe answer that even better than I could. We have had some preliminary conversation about the appropriateness of how much funding that Washington County Parks could contribute to that equipment, and both as it relates to the affordability within our budget and our user fees, as well as the appropriateness of that as it relates to the equipment. But I have not to receive yet. I am yet to receive the specifics on the equipment and see the cost of the equipment, other than a verbal conversation with the fire chief.
Okay. The other thing related to that too is, and I don't know anything about the other committee, but right now the county is exploring or having a conversation about fire services countywide. Wondering if like some of this type of equipment could be built into those talks to, obviously it's a very specific need for this location, but is there a chance or a use for this equipment to be used elsewhere that it would be a shared type equipment? Something to be brought up at that committee too.
Okay, well, let's do this. Let's hear from the chief real quick, if you desire to speak a little bit. So we can please step up to the podium. We're not going to necessarily negotiate on anything here or anything like that, but we just at least want to hear your thoughts on the equipment.
Let me answer the question real quick of use by other departments. So MABUS is a contract that is done through Washington County, state of Wisconsin also. Any equipment that we have or obtain is available for request for any other fire department that is part of the MABUS contract. We'll just say West Bend gets a call to Sandy Knoll and they want that specific piece of equipment, which is off-road angle rescue. All they have to do is request it. We send it. So that interoperability between departments is an open invitation to anybody, which once that is out to the rest of the departments, that will be a good piece of equipment that is unique and specific, not just to this. She is correct. I have nothing more than a verbal conversation of what the need is out there. One of the things that we are challenged with, and I'll just keep this very brief, is, like Logan said, this park has been very minimally used. We've had maybe a single call out there every 3 years, which has been traditional. Now we're getting 13 calls a year. You know, topography rescue through the middle of the woods, people wrapped around trees or in rock faces, stuff like that. So we have put together a general idea of what it's going to take to do the rescue based upon calling other departments in Missouri, California, when they have other bike parks, how did they provide rescue to it? And that's kind of where we came up with it. Right now, I would say the conversation of need has been expressed and received very well, and we're just working through it at this point. So.
Anybody have any questions for the chief?
At this time,
Beyond
I
that,
want to put those numbers out there.
I don't want to put those numbers out there. I think that kind of hurts both sides of negotiations, so I don't want to necessarily.
I would agree. And I would prefer to stay with the communications we've got going now, which have been very healthy, and it's open to ideas. It's open to other means by which to do it. And I would suggest let her do exactly what she's good at and figure out what the important part it is for the county. We know what the need is for us and try to find an amicable solution. So
The chief is very prudent. Thank you, sir. You know, there's so much that goes into it. I've been obviously privy to a little bit of it, and you know, there's really just too many things open at this point to be, you know, really succinct on certain parts of it. You know, I mean, nailing down a number would be dartboard throw at this point. So, and usage and that store. I mean, there's a million things. So I wouldn't necessarily want to entertain that. But obviously, I did want the chief to express his ideas that, you know, the safety aspect of this, because we're obviously all very concerned about keeping it safe. But realizing we only have a certain amount of funds and how we're going to raise them and stuff like that would also be difficult for the Parks Department. So we'll see. But anything else you need to add, Chief?
Just this is a very unique, I think you guys got the magnitude, but this is a very unique high-risk activity. And it takes a lot of manpower right now to get people out of there at that point. So we're looking to try to make that a little bit more fluent for the rescuee and a little bit more safe for us, so it doesn't take 15 people to carry someone out of a 120-acre park to an ambulance. So,
And I think that's prudent as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Supervisor Krebs, you still had some other points?
I always have more.
Yes, sir, you do.
That last public input meeting, that Zoom one, was that recorded? And if so, could you share it with us?
It was not recorded, unfortunately. I did not test that feature, and it appears you need special access from our IT department to record meetings on Microsoft Teams. So I did not have that capability to record the meeting, unfortunately.
Okay, I did miss that. I had the invite, but
Well, Supervisor Pridemore and I were both on that meeting, and yeah, the Supervisor Conrath as well. I forgot you came in a little late, didn't you? Or one of us came in late, I don't remember. But anyway, really it was just the same update that we received. There wasn't really anything that you would have really missed on that one.
This is more detailed.
Yeah.
It wasn't interactive.
Yeah, it was strictly, he gave his presentation and that was about it. There wasn't any.
People could ask questions in the comment section, which
Yeah.
I did answer during the.
And there was a few and they were really not anything major.
Okay.
So.
And I've got this packet still to review, but so I don't know if it's in there or not in the operating agreements or the MOUs, but maintenance of the trails and also or dissolution of the trails at a point if it would come to that. I think those are some details no one would want to talk about, but definitely we should have those addressed before it's expanded further.
I agree, and I think, I really like the point that I believe you made when we were out on site where, getting Metro's board to also approve this plan is very important so that they have some skin in the game, that if, God forbid that scenario ever came up where they were like, we're done with Heritage Trails, that they have some skin in the game that won't happen. Because that is you're exactly right. I mean, we see that now with the disc golf course out there. I mean, it's not maintained. It's not in good shape. People complain about it all the time, and you'd hate to see that to an amenity like this that literally they have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in.
And they've moved dirt, so to restore it to its original condition would be tens to hundreds of thousands.
It'd be, yes.
So something for us to consider down the road, or how long will this continue? So just some things I would like to see addressed.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to make
Supervisor Conrath?
I think, number one is safety that we have to look at, and that includes our, constituents' concern of, for horses being spooked. I had a family member who was, killed by a bull on a farm that, was spooked and things, and we do have to, think of that. Those potential risks and things of horses being spooked, and then to the point of rescuing these individuals, that really safety needs to be our top priority here with whatever we move forward with first.
Absolutely.
Anybody else?
Just one question. How long
Supervisor
has
Pridemore?
this been around?
The mountain bike trails?
Yeah.
2021 was the first year that construction started. Okay. So I believe right now there's currently, I think it's like just over 6 miles of trails out there today that are open. So
yeah, it's beautiful. It really is. But yeah, very high risk sport.
And you'll see in the full plan, we'll include, the International Mountain Bicycling Association did a full assessment of the current trails that are out there, and they were scored very high. We have a lot of confidence that these have been constructed well, and have no reason to believe that they won't be constructed well moving forward.
Anybody else? All right, if I could be the last word on it. Yeah, so I agree, safety, access points, equipment, those types of things we want to make sure. And I've been really diving into this pretty heavily. I've been there. I've spent time there twice now, and I'm going again. This time I'm going to ride it, at least portions of it. And I've canvassed a lot of people that are actively using the park. So I'm thoroughly investigating what's going on with it. And a lot of things I'm very pleased with. I talked to the people, and everybody is just glowing about the trails. And I talked to people from Illinois, Kenosha, Ozaki. I mean, they were coming from all over the place. So everything that Logan has said is absolutely true. I talked to him a little bit. I introduced myself as the chairman of Land Use and Planning, and also told him a little bit about this plan here, the youth skills area or the skills area, possible shelters in the future, those types of things, and they were absolutely beside themselves thrilled. So they'd like to definitely see that. They're very excited. I did talk to a group that actually was done mountain biking and then went to the disc golf course. So there is cross usage. It's not just two different groups of people. There are people who use it multi-purpose. And another thing that I discussed with them was cost. Our price for using a county park is so ridiculously cheap. I mean, it is the best value on the planet.
It is.
You can get in there, a carload of people for $35 a year, or whatever it is now. I mean, I think that's what it is. I mean, and literally spend the entire day there. You can't get entertainment that cheap anywhere. So I think the value is absolutely outstanding.
Thank you so much for saying that. Just a quick add that is a conversation as it relates
I was going to say that.
Funding Metro, funding the needed fire equipment related to mountain biking specifically, that we are starting to talk about. It likely won't be as part of this plan initiation, but the broader sense of making sure that we maintain a healthy financial status for Washington County Parks now and in the future. So as we look at 2025, that budget in 2026, there's certainly an appetite that I think that we recognize that. We hear it from Metro all of the time as well, that other mountain bike parks are charging more.
And they've come to us and said they'd fully support an increase in fees for usage out there. So.
Yeah, and to be quite honest, with the 268% increase in the census, that monies are used not only at Heritage Hills, but at Glacier Hills and at, Yar. All these monies are combined into our Parks Department. This helps fund a lot of the things we do throughout our park system. So having a healthy Heritage Hills means a healthy Glacier Hills and a healthy Yar and all the rest. So, I'm looking forward to seeing the plan being done, and